Welcome into the Edward Jones Chatting Cage, your chance to get FaceTime with your favorite players, broadcasters, front office personnel around the game of baseball. I'm Tim McMaster, and joining us in the cage today, Duane Kuiper, former player and, of course, Giants broadcaster. And out in Los Angeles with Duane is our Jeremy Brizell. JB, take it away.
Tim, thanks so much. A real pleasure to be here in the Chatting Cage, queuing up Duane Kuiper, five-time Emmy Award-winning broadcaster with the Giants and former MLB second baseman. Duane, thanks for being with us.
You know what? I'm in kind of like unfamiliar territory here, very close to the Dodger clubhouse, which for me, I'm not sure that that's good.
I was a little concerned. We're actually in the press room, which is a just fleet of Dodger blue chairs. I wasn't sure if that was fair or not. It was upsetting.
Well, if Charlie Steiner walks by, I'm going to have to tackle him.
Let's find Charlie as soon as we can. All right, everybody, let's get to it. This is the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. We're pretty much on the way we're supposed to be. I'm going to queue up some social media questions. Fans, get your webcams fired up. Ask Duane a question directly. Let's go first to Mark S. Bives or Bivvies. It's basically a question about the era. Duane, are athletes better today than when you played in the majors?
Athletes are better today because they get to train year-round, where even before my era, athletes had to work in the off season, and when they went to spring training, they went to spring training to get in shape. Now, if you don't come to spring training in shape, you know you're in trouble or you get fined. So, health-wise, everything's better now. Travel-wise, does that make them better? In a lot of ways, it does. But I mean, there's a lot of ways you can argue it. When I was a kid following my team, the Milwaukee Braves, it seemed like almost every team had 2 or 3 future Hall of Famers on it. That's not the case now.
That's our first question from social media for Duane Kuiper. This is the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. We will get fans joining us here in the cage as soon as they're ready to set up the pitching machine to get Duane a question. We got a fan with us now. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your question for Duane?
My name's Fred. I'm from California, and I wanted to know his thoughts on the second base situation now with the Giants.
Well, Marco Scutaro is there. You know, there's no sign that he's going to be back anytime soon. So it's going to be a mix and match for Bruce Bochy. It's going to be Adrianza, it's going to be Arias, and right now it's Brandon Hicks. And as long as Hicks every 4 or 5 games knocks one out of the park, and he keeps playing solid defense, and he's going to be the guy.
This is the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. Duane Kuiper answering Fred's question about the second base situation there in San Francisco. Tim McMaster, I know you got the social media feeds fired up. What do we got?
Duane, Jonathan Robertson wants to know, what's the greatest piece of advice that you've ever received?
Ever received?
Ever.
Probably if you're going to ask a girl on a date, do it on the phone.
And what would be the greatest advice you've dispensed?
Dispensed?
Yes.
Now it would be to my kids when they were dating is just do it by way of a texting.
So move further away from the situation.
Actually, the best advice I got, and it's the only advice that you get when you get to pro ball, and that's be on time. If you're on time, you're not going to get in trouble. If you're not on time, there's a good chance you might not be around for very long.
All right, that is good advice on all fronts.
It is.
Both dating and professionally. And then on the dates, be on time as well.
On time. And go to a good restaurant.
This is what you get on the Edward Jones Chatting Cage, folks. Duane Kuiper answering all questions. We go now to social media, and this is part of the fun of the cage as well. This is from the DA53. That, in fact, is David Aardsma, who pitched for the Giants. And his simple question, Duane, is, do you remember the handshake?
Yeah, my partner, Mike Krukow, is, since he's been with the Giants, has convinced everybody that since the Giants started in New York City, they've had this secret Giants handshake. And he showed David Aardsma the day he got to the big leagues what that handshake was. And he made sure David gave it to him every day. And clearly, Mr. Aardsma has not forgotten about it. So way to go, Mike Krukow.
He is not. The DA53, a part of the Edward Jones chatting cage. We have a lot more conversation coming up here, so get your webcams fired up if you're watching us right now. Join us here on the screen, like this fan right here. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your question for Mr. Kuiper?
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm from Maryland, and I'm wondering, what was your proudest moment in the major leagues?
Well, look, the standard answer is the day you get there is usually anybody's proudest moment, because it's what every kid wants to do, is to be a major leaguer. And then you get to walk into that stadium for the first time, and it's absolutely breathtaking. In my case, it was walking into Municipal Stadium and seeing 80,000 empty seats. Not knowing that when the game started, there was going to be 80,000 empty seats. But nevertheless, it didn't matter to me. I was in the big leagues, and I was going to enjoy it. From a broadcasting standpoint, it was probably the final out in the 2010 World Series, where the Giants finally, in San Francisco, won a championship.
That is an electric moment for many Giants fans, and kind of a big part of that, obviously. Let's go back to Tim. Tim, what do we got via social media?
Yeah, things are heating up, JB, and we're going to go back to Facebook. And Wally Stevens, Duane, wants to know, what do you think of sabermetrics? And on top of that, are you a traditionalist?
Well, I think someone my age is always going to stick to what they know and what they do best. And in that way, as far as broadcasting, I am a traditionalist. I mean, I do get that people that enjoy sabermetrics and use it to their advantage. I get it. I mean, I think you have to be aware that you have to use every possible way you can do to make your team better, or even make your broadcast better by using some of the different formulas. So, I mean, I don't totally turn a blind eye to it, but I kind of stick with what I'm used to.
This is the Edward Jones chatting cage. Duane Kuiper taking his hacks, answering your questions here in the cage. We go back to social media. And this one, this I guess speaks to proud moments as well, Duane. This is from Joe D22. How did you feel that the Giants held a Duane Kuiper home run bobblehead night in your honor?
Well, I tell you what, it was. Look, you get a bobblehead and you're not a player anymore. That's good. And then you get a bobblehead where you're actually in the uniform of the team that you're playing that night, which was fantastic because I was in an Indians uniform. And then you get to see yourself in that bobblehead where you don't have a boiler. And, it was like, even my wife looked at the bobblehead and said, "Really? That's what you look like? Holy smokes." So that was like 35 pounds ago, so it was great.
So it was the svelte likeness of yourself that you really enjoyed.
Well, it did, if it was the bobblehead now, it would be like the Babe Ruth physique. But back then, it was the 30 waist and the 175 pounds of not a lot of power.
I like it. An outstanding answer to the Duane Kuiper bobblehead night. We have a fan with us again. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your question for Duane?
Hi, I'm Rena from Boston, and I was wondering what your favorite baseball park is in the majors.
Well, look, you're from Boston. I married a woman from Boston, so I know you're tough. That's for sure. And I know that if I don't say Fenway Park, there's going to be some problems with you and with the woman at home. But I do love Fenway Park, and I think we all love the new ones because of all the great new amenities it has. But the old ones, Wrigley, Fenway Park, you have to really. We're sitting here at Dodger Stadium. It's a terrific ballpark. So I like the old ones. And I like the new ones because of, where we work and everything's much better as far as broadcast booths. But give me the old ones. They're a lot more fun.
The great old ballparks, the cathedrals of baseball, a great place to be. We go back to Twitter. Patrick Palladino, known as Celestian321, has a very nuts and bolts question. Hey, Kuip, how do you think Pablo can turn it around, or will he even manage that before free agency? Yeah,
I think, that's a good question. I think anytime you get close to June and you've got a guy that has a history, and the back of his baseball card will tell you that what he's going to do, but you start getting closer to June, then you start to get a little bit concerned. And I think the Giants are concerned. But Pablo's still got some time to turn this thing around, and they're going to give him every opportunity to do that because you have to, because of what he's done in the past. I don't know what he has to do. I do know that he needs to figure it out because the Giants really need him in what he can do in that lineup.
Kung Fu Panda, big part of that offense and that team there in San Francisco. Tim, I know you are monitoring everything via the internet. Fill us in.
Yeah, back to the book. Back to some Facebook here, Duane. And you mentioned earlier a little bit about how players have changed since back when you played. But Jeff Ramiro wants to know, how has the game changed since you were a player?
Well, look, we went through that steroid era, and we know how much that changed the game. And now, we're back to maybe there's a little bit more emphasis on speed, certainly a lot more emphasis on pitching. And I think we're starting to see pitching dominate a little bit more than what we saw the 2 decades prior. So I think it has changed a little bit, and it does go in cycles. I mean, maybe 10 years from now you're going to see a lot of young hitters come in that are going to take off. But right now, I mean, you look around the bullpens almost on every team, they got 2 or 3 guys coming out of that bullpen throwing 95 or 96. And it didn't used to be like that. So I think that's how the game has changed is pitching, and then certainly the amount of hard throwers coming out of the bullpen.
It has been some of the numbers, in fact, on that.
Yep.
The top end of velocity for pitchers and the number of pitchers reaching that velocity is
Yep.
definitely a staggering number at this point. This is Duane Kuiper. I'm JB. It's Edward Jones. Chatting Cage, where fans get a chance to get FaceTime with their favorite announcers. We've got one now. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your question for Duane?
Hi, this is Matt from Pittsburgh. Did you play any other sports growing up? And could you have gone pro in them?
Well, I grew up in Wisconsin, and the only thing I didn't play was hockey. I played basketball. I played football. I don't know, for whatever reason, hockey was just not something that was on the radar. And in Wisconsin, you have to play them all because my high school schedule, because of the weather, was 12 games. I mean, I led the city in hitting, and I had 30 at-bats. I was like 13 for 30, and I was like, wow, Kuip led the city in hitting. Meanwhile, you're looking at kids in Florida and California in high school, and they're getting 100, 150 at-bats. So my suggestion is play them all. Play them all when you're little. As you move on into the middle schools and high schools, if you like it, play them all. Do not let a coach talk you into just sticking with one sport. Play them all because it'll make you better.
And it's a lot of fun as well. A big part of that. You talked about growing up in Wisconsin. Let's go back. Sam Snyder, 16, wants to know. You talked about the Braves as well. So who were your biggest role models growing up?
Well, look, I liked Eddie Matthews, and I liked him because he played third, and that's what I wanted to play. And I liked him because he hit the ball out of the park. And, it was obvious that wasn't going to happen when I started to play. But I liked him. I obviously liked Hank Aaron. I loved the style of Johnny Logan when I was a kid. And I could go on and on about all those guys that I cheered for as a youngster because I always thought that they were the best. And now looking back at those years, the only really sad part is when I think it was 1966 they picked up and they moved. And no kid should have their team move.
That is well said. I think on that very dramatic point, it's time to wrap this cage up. You pretty happy with that?
You know what? I am really happy with this, and I'm glad that this was just a practice run. So when are we going to get started?
Let's roll the cameras. Duane's ready to go. We will start the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. For Tim McMaster, I'm JB. Duane, thanks for being with us. It was a real pleasure.
You got it.
We'll catch you guys next time with the Edward Jones Chatting Cage.